When I tell the story of Chris and John to introduce the structure of negotiations to my students, many of them challenge me and point out how the example I give is too simple, if not completely simplistic, to reflect the full range of negotiation situations we have to deal with in everyday life. While I only partially agree with their conclusion, certainly, the example given is simplistic for several reasons. Firstly, because in our example, we focused all our attention on the financial aspect of the deal, namely the selling price of the car. However, the economic motivation is only one issue among others. Other objectives that negotiators pursue are just as important in influencing their behavior as financial motivations. In the context of selling a car, for example, negotiators may be motivated by time constraints, such as selling or buying a car at short notice, or by relational objectives, such as maintaining a good relationship with the other party. Secondly, our example is simplistic because negative ZOPAs are much less likely in financial transaction situations than they are when we negotiate in a high-intensity conflict, where the stakes are fundamentally very complex and involve ideological or identity issues. In such negotiations, proposals that are minimally acceptable to one party are often considered indecent and unacceptable by the other party, and the conflicting parties more generally resort to other modes of conflict management than negotiation. Finally, even in the case of the sale of a car, there is often more than one topic of discussion at the negotiating table. Price is only one issue among many, and presenting a case of negotiation where only one issue is being discussed does not reflect the much more numerous situations where the parties have to agree on a multiplicity of issues. The multiplicity of issues makes the negotiation process much more complex, which renders the task of the negotiators much more difficult. On the other hand, the multiplicity of issues substantially increases the number and quality of agreements that can be developed. We will come back to this point when we discuss negotiating strategies and tactics. A simple example then, but in my view, not as simplistic as it seems at first sight. Firstly, because although many situations operate on the basis of multiple issues, each issue needs to be thought through and defined in terms of aspiration point, reservation point, and first offers. Secondly, because even in negotiation contexts that do not deal directly with financial issues, it is still the same questions that negotiators must ask. Whether we are considering negotiations between nations at war, or agreements between companies on rules of fair competition, or discussions that arise within a couple or a family, we will always have to ask ourselves the same following questions. What are we trying to achieve through the discussion? These are the points of aspiration. What are the limits that should not be crossed and the boundaries that should be respected? These are the reservation points. What will happen if the negotiation does not succeed? These are the alternatives. Is a consensus achievable? This is the zone of possible agreement. And what is put on the negotiating table first? These are the first offers. So, 5 fundamental questions. 5 questions that need to be answered if we are to ensure that we start negotiating with the right cards in hands.